Okay, yeah, welcome. As I just mentioned, Kim Poremski. I'm saying that right, Kim?
You are.
All
Yeah,
right.
God,
Yoo-hoo.
awesome.
First time. Um, we're going to talk about crimes against Agile, and we'll have a cool new format that I'll let Kim describe to you. But to dispense of the stuff ahead of time here, wow, it's not letting me. Is it rolling? It's rolling, but I can't see it. I'm sorry, guys. I'm just like, you know, here we go. Thank you to our financial sponsors, Adobe and Eliason Group, our in-kind sponsors, Scrum.org, Lean Kit, Constant Contact, and Mural. And as a reminder, you guys can see all of our, all this meeting is being recorded. All of our meetings have been recorded, and our process, with special thanks to our video sponsor, Eliason Group, who converts it, and then we put it on our website. And all you have to do is log into the website to see any of our past videos there. So without further ado, I will stop sharing and let Kim take over.
Okay. I am happy to do that.
As always, the chat is open, folks, to voice your uh, any thoughts you have as we go along. But
All right. Is everybody seeing that shared screen?
yeah,
A
everybody.
thumbs up. All right. Well, that's good. We're in business. Well, I'm really excited to be here, everyone. Thank you so much for taking even more time out of your day because I'm sure you've probably had a long day at work potentially, and here you are hanging out even later this evening to spend some time with me. Just really quickly, you might have read my bio, so I don't want to bore people with that too much, but my name is Kim Poremski. I've been an Agilist since 2008. I'm the owner of a company called Agile Prowess, very small consulting and training company. Recently went out on my own back in April of this year. And I've just been really fortunate to continue to pursue my passion of teaching and coaching and mentoring individuals and teams and companies and how to embrace agility. I'm a certified Scrum trainer, so I do a lot of Scrum Master and product owner training and so forth. So really happy to be here. And, Maggie and I were chit-chatting while you were all in the breakout room, and I was explaining to her that I had put together this talk months ago. And since that time, it feels like this agile is dead rhetoric has just intensified over the last several months. And, I just, this talk I think is important for me because I'm seeing firsthand, I go out to LinkedIn and I see the open to work badges popping up, and I see the heartfelt pleas for recommendations and job leads and things from talented Scrum masters and agile coaches. And even though I am a certified Scrum trainer and I am a strong advocate for frameworks such as Scrum, over the years, I've just seen that we often just get too caught up in the what and the how of these frameworks. And we try so hard to follow the rules that we lose sight of why we're doing what we're doing and why we want to be and work in a more agile way. And so the doing kind of gets in the way of the being. And so that's really kind of the premise for this talk tonight. I wanted to just have a little bit of fun with it. I wanted to focus back on those agile values and principles and just think about the why and not get so caught up in all of the mechanics. And so we're going to focus on some of these anti-patterns that do get in the way. You might see yourselves or your teams or your organizations in some of these things. I wanted to keep this a little bit lighthearted, or maybe I'll say dark-hearted, because we're going to engage in what I'm calling a courtroom drama. So it's a little bit of a different type of presentation for me. Normally, I'm doing really very interactive breakout rooms and that sort of thing. In this particular presentation, I'm going to be doing more of a role play. So I'm going to be putting on the hat of a prosecutor, And I want all of you to be the members of the jury. And one of the things that I am going to ask you to do, if you can quickly, is to just try to grab a piece of paper and a pen. As we go through the presentation, I'm going to just have you jot down some numbers. I'll explain. And then at the end, we're going to plug those numbers in and kind of see where we all are. And so with that, let's go ahead and get started with our courtroom setting here. So that's right. As I mentioned, you are all going to be playing members of the jury in what has become the trial of the century, involving the plaintiff, Agility, versus the evil defendant. Now, at one time, the defendant was an amazing, passionate scrum master, but he ventured to the dark side. And so now he's known as the scum master. Now, I'm going to be the prosecutor for this trial. And before we get started, as I said, I do want you to grab that sheet of paper. And even if it's on your phone, if you don't have paper handy, if you want to just pull up a note on your phone, anywhere that you can jot down some numbers. And I'm going to ask you to number either in your phone or on a sheet of paper, number it from 1 through 12. I'm going to be making the case against the scum master by going through each of the 12 principles and explaining the crimes that have been committed. And after I talk about the crimes for each principle, I would like for you to think about your experiences and your observations at your current or your former company and decide, is the scum master guilty of committing this crime from your perspective? And so we're going to use a scale of 1 through 5, 1 being not guilty and 5 being guilty, or somewhere in between. So then, as I mentioned at the end of the presentation, you're all going to be able to contribute to the overall verdict by entering the numbers that you wrote down. So definitely would love for you to keep track of that. So now let's go ahead and commence our trial. First, with our opening statement. So, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, you have been specifically chosen to fulfill this most important responsibility to ensure that justice is served. You are about to hear of the most egregious crimes that have been committed against our plaintiff, Agility. The defendant, who goes by the name the Scum Master, is on trial today for attempted murder. As we make the case against the Scum Master, you're going to learn about a series of crimes that have been committed that nearly killed our plaintiff. Now, I'm sure you're going to take this responsibility seriously, and as you listen to the detailed evidence that I'm going to present, I'm confident that you will arrive at a verdict that puts the Scum Master behind bars for life. And in doing so, you will preserve the safety and vitality of Agility for years to come. Now, we've got many crimes, folks. This evidence is mounting, and we are going to present our arguments by walking you through each of Agility's principles, and we're going to explain the specific crime that's being charged and present you with detailed evidence related to the crime. And so first, we have Agile principle number 1. And that is our highest priority is to satisfy the customer through early and continuous delivery of valuable software. For this principle, the Scum Master is being charged with breach of contract. On multiple occasions, the Scum Master has hindered the team's ability to deliver value or to meet or exceed customer expectations. This was a direct violation of the agreements in place with the customers, and we have a lot of evidence that we have gathered. So I would like to introduce several exhibits that we have here. Exhibit number 1, scope creep. I submit to you a product backlog and more than 20 sprint backlogs that demonstrate scope creep. Special requests from a subset of customers and leaders are added to the scope, even when these requests don't support the overall vision and direction of the product. We also have exhibit number 2, lack of customer discovery and feedback. The Scrum Master prevents the team from involving customers regularly. Sprint reviews are either not scheduled or they're often canceled. Customer research and discovery isn't conducted. Decisions about what to build are made based on assumptions, but the assumptions are never validated with actual customer research and discovery, resulting in misalignment and rework and waste. And then lastly, we have Exhibit 3, delayed deliveries. The Scrum Master prioritizes the needs of internal stakeholders over customer requirements, and that's caused delays and missed opportunities for the customer's advantage. So now, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I want you to think about this first crime, breach of contract. And on your piece of paper or phone, go ahead and jot down your verdict for crime number 1 on a scale of 1 through 5. 1 being not guilty, 5 being guilty, or if you think it's somewhere in between. So hopefully you'll get the idea here. And as we move on to principle number 2, welcome changing requirements, even late in development. Agile processes harness change for the customer's competitive advantage. The Scrum Master is being charged with false imprisonment. On multiple occasions, the Scrum Master restricted the team to initial requirements and prevented the natural evolution of the product in response to customer feedback and changing conditions. The evidence that we have gathered include a few exhibits. So I would like to submit to you exhibit number 1, rigid change control. You'll see that we have 13 Confluence pages detailing complex procedures that a customer must follow to submit a simple request for a change. And you'll note that even for the simplest change, the earliest turnaround time was 4 sprints into the future. And then we have exhibit number 2, inflexible planning. And for that, I have 2 pieces of evidence. First, a 3-year roadmap that has not changed once in the entire year of its existence, despite new customer requests, market fluctuations, and competitive analysis. And secondly, I have here a 423-line Microsoft project plan, complete with a Gantt chart and tasks broken down into increments of hours. Now, I realize this last piece of evidence is particularly disturbing to many of you, so I'll give you a minute to compose yourselves and recover from the shock of this horrific evidence. And now it's time for you to reflect a little bit on this crime of false imprisonment related to principle number 2. So what do you think? On your sheet of paper or phone, go ahead and jot down your vote for crime number 2 on a scale of 1 through 5. And as you're doing that, we're going to move on to principle number 3. Deliver working software frequently from a couple of weeks to a couple of months with a preference for the shorter timescale. Now, the Scrum Master is being charged with obstruction of justice. On multiple occasions, the Scrum Master willfully impeded the flow of regular product delivery, thereby obstructing the product's progress and the delivery of customer value. Now, the evidence in this case, folks, speaks for itself. We've got several exhibits here. First, we have lengthy deployment cycles and release schedules. I submit to you a deployment log that clearly demonstrates that code is only deployed to production once a month, despite the team operating in 2-week sprints. And furthermore, I submit to you a release cycle plan showing that new functionality is released to customers on a quarterly basis and sometimes only even twice per year. Our second exhibit, incomplete deliverables and carryover. So now I would like to present to the jury records from the team's last 12 sprints which clearly show that the team has not fully met its sprint commitments a single time in those 12 sprints. Each time, at least half the work was carried over to the subsequent sprint. This has resulted in a lack of predictability as to when new features and functionality will be delivered. And this has had an impact on sales and marketing and legal and compliance, and most importantly, the customers themselves. And then exhibit 3, horizontally structured work. So this next piece of evidence shows the composition of the team's sprint backlogs over a series of several sprints. Now you'll notice that in one sprint, the team is delivering a UI component. In a subsequent sprint, they're delivering the back-end code. And in a third sprint, they're doing the testing of the UI in the back-end. This is an egregious violation of Principle 3 because it takes a minimum of 3 sprints, or 6 weeks if you're working in a 2-week sprint, to deliver any value to customers in the form of working product or software. So for this obstruction of justice, I would ask for you to submit your vote on your verdict for this crime number 3 on a scale of 1 to 5. So I'll have you jot that down. Think about all the things happening in your organization and your teams today, and we'll move on to Agile principle number 4. Business people and developers must work together daily throughout the project. The Scum Master is being charged in this case with breach of trust. The Scum Master failed to establish and maintain open lines of communication and collaboration between business stakeholders and developers. So what we're seeing is a lot of misunderstanding and mistrust and inefficiency. Now you'll see the evidence here is plentiful as well. First, we have exhibit number 1, siloed communication. The business and technical teams are operating in isolation. They're always misaligned. The Scum Master purposely keeps developers away from the business because he claims developers don't know how to effectively communicate with the business in a way that they can understand. Then we have exhibit number 2, disengaged product owner. The product owner is not treated like a member of the team, often doesn't engage with the team until the end of the sprint. If the team does have a rare sprint review, the product owner will often criticize their work in front of stakeholders. And then we have exhibit number 3, lack of stakeholder involvement. The team fails to engage stakeholders in regular sprint reviews at all. They're not transparent with stakeholders when commitments aren't met or if delivery dates are expected to be delayed. And then lastly, exhibit number 4, failing to create collaborative product roadmaps. So although product roadmaps are created, they're developed in a vacuum by the product team, absent of any participation by stakeholders and the technical team. Lots of violations happening here with breach of trust. So once again, where do you see your teams and organizations? How would you rank the guiltiness for these crimes? Let you think about that for a minute. And we're going to keep moving on to Agile principle number 5. Now, I must warn you that the crimes and the evidence become even more disturbing. For Agile principle number 5, this is about building projects around motivated individuals, giving them the environment and support they need, and trusting them to get the job done. And in this case, the Scum Master is being charged with oppression. It's undeniable that the Scum Master has managed the team using command and control and fear tactics, leading to a lack of morale and motivation, even causing some team members to resign. And as you'll see, the evidence is pretty telling. We have exhibit number 1, micromanagement and lack of trust. The Scum Master tells the team what work needs to be done in the sprint. The Scum Master assigns the work and the tasks to each team member instead of allowing them to self-manage their work. Team members are constantly monitored, particularly during the daily scrum, in which they are asked for detailed status updates, and then they're berated for not getting their work done quickly enough. And then we have exhibit number 2, failure to support impediment removal. The Scum Master has failed to support the team by removing impediments. They haven't been preventing scope creep, and they haven't been shielding the team from distractions and non-value added work that inhibits the team's ability to meet their commitments. So again, this is a pretty egregious crime that's being charged, this crime of oppression. And I want you to think long and hard about what this means for your teams and your organizations. How guilty is the Scum Master of this crime? All right. We've got Agile principle number 6. The most efficient and effective method of conveying information to and within a development team is face-to-face conversation. Now, for this Agile principle, the Scum Master is being charged with sabotage for undermining team efficiency and effectiveness. We've got several exhibits to show you that support this charge. First, we have exhibit number 1, limiting opportunities to collaborate. The team fails to conduct team retrospectives to promote continuous improvement and elevate their ability to self-manage. They don't engage in practices like pair or mob programming. When a team member is stuck and needs help, the other team members can't help them because they're too busy completing all of their own, often pre-assigned work. Then we have exhibit number 2, poor meeting practices. So excessive or unproductive meetings are scheduled that waste time and energy instead of leveraging the events that are inherent to the Agile frameworks that exist. There are so many meetings that there's barely time to get the actual work done. And the daily scrum is treated like a status meeting instead of a planning session for the team. And then we have exhibit number 3, lack of transparency. Now, this includes failing to engage stakeholders and customers in sprint reviews for early and frequent feedback, and failing to communicate to and work with leaders to address the bigger organizational impediments that hinder the team's progress. So for this crime of sabotage, I want you to think about how guilty is the Scum Master of this crime? How do you relate in your teams and your organizations? That now brings us to Agile principle number 7. Working software is the primary measure of progress. In this crime, the Scum Master is being charged with embezzlement, particularly as it relates to this Agile principle number 7. Based on the evidence we've gathered, the Scum Master has stolen valuable time and energy from the members of the team by having them work on non-essential activities and perform in suboptimal ways. And that means that he has also stolen the ability for customers to receive value. Now let's examine this evidence. First, Exhibit number one, excessive documentation. We can show you thousands of pages of status reports, detailed user stories, big upfront technical designs, and lengthy user documentation and release notes that have impeded the team's ability to deliver working software. And then let's look at exhibit number two, misaligned metrics. We have direct testimonials from team members that the Scrum Master tracks irrelevant metrics, including lines of code produced, the team's velocity compared to other teams, the number of backlog items delivered each sprint. Instead of assessing the quality and the functionality of the product in forms of outcomes, not outputs. And finally, exhibit number three, a big one, ignoring technical debt. The Scrum Master and his accomplice, the product zoner, have conspired to prioritize new features over maintaining code quality. That means accumulating a lot of technical debt and putting successful product delivery at risk. So for this crime of embezzlement, for Agile principle number 7, how guilty do you think the Scrum Master is? Give that some thought. And then we have Agile principle number 8. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, we are not finished yet. We now need to discuss the horrendous crime related to Agile principle number 8. That crime is exploitation. The evidence that supports this charge against the Scrum Master is disturbing because it not only impacts the team members' professional lives, but their personal relationships, as well as their physical and mental health. We have a couple of exhibits related to this. Number 1, overloading teams. You will hear firsthand expert testimony that the Scrum Master, along with his accomplice, the product owner, repeatedly sets unrealistic deadlines and assigns excessive work to the team. Yes, you heard that correctly. They push work to the team instead of allowing the team members to pull the work into their sprints. Exhibit number 2, work-life balance. Oh, was there somebody not on mute? Question? All right, let's keep going. We have exhibit number 2, ignoring work-life balance. So team members have to endure long, grueling hours of overtime in the evenings and on weekends. Team members are expected to work overtime regularly, and this causes a lot of stress and it diminishes productivity. And then we have inconsistent workflows. Folks, there's a big difference between welcoming changing requirements and constantly shifting priorities or changing project goals. The former increases customer satisfaction and it addresses market and competitive shifts. The latter causes a lot of uncertainty and unhealthy disruption to the team. So for this crime of exploitation, this lack of sustainable pace here, how guilty do you think the Scrum Master is? Right. That brings us to Agile principle number 9. Continuous attention to technical excellence and good design enhances agility. For this principle, the Scrum Master is being charged with neglect for ignoring technical debt, cutting corners on code quality and design. And there's some mounting evidence to support this charge. Number 1, neglecting refactoring. So the Scrum Master has prohibited the team from making code improvements and engaging in refactoring because schedules are too tight and there's too many deadlines. And so now a lot of technical debt has been incurred. Skipping code reviews, exhibit number 2. So code reviews are non-existent That means poor quality software and missed learning opportunities for the team. And ignoring design principles, exhibit number 3. Speed is consistently prioritized over quality, leading to poor architecture and design. So once again, your voice needs to be heard to ensure justice. How guilty do you think the Scum Master is of this crime? Members of the jury, I do appreciate your patience and attention as we review this exhaustive list of charges against the Scum Master. And we are continuing on now with crimes related to Agile principle number 10. Simplicity, the art of maximizing the amount of work not done, is essential. For this, the Scum Master is being charged with fraud. Based on the evidence we've gathered, the Scum Master has aided and abetted the introduction of unnecessary complexity and over-engineering of tasks and solutions. So this has created the illusion of productivity, but really hiding inefficiencies and wasted effort. So let's look at this evidence. Exhibit 1, we have feature creep. So when the product owner, senior leaders, or highly influential customers and stakeholders request unnecessary features or try to add scope to a project that's not aligned with the product vision and goals, the Scum Master does not allow the team to push back, doesn't allow them to challenge the request or to say no. This complicates development and it detracts from the usability of the product. Then we have exhibit number 2, complex processes. So the Scum Master has introduced complicated workflows and bureaucracy that slows down progress. And lastly, inadequate prioritization. The Scum Master has failed to support the team in leveraging effective prioritization techniques. The backlog of work continues to grow, but nothing is ever descoped or removed. And this has caused the team to waste time on lower priority or low value work. So for this crime of fraud, for not keeping things simple, maximizing the amount of work not done, where do you stand? How guilty is the Scum Master of this in your team or organization? Did you jot that down? All right, well, we are nearing the end of our list of charges as we now focus on Agile principle number 11. The best architectures, requirements, and designs emerge from self-organizing teams. The Scum Master is being charged with tyranny for imposing excessive authority and control over teams, for suppressing their autonomy and their ability to self-organize, and it's impeding their innovation and creative problem solving. So let's take a look at this evidence. We've got exhibit number 1, centralized decision making. The Scum Master supports imposing decisions from the top down, limiting team autonomy and creativity. Exhibit number 2, lack of empowerment. Teams are not able to make their own decisions, and it stifles their innovation. And lastly, exhibit number 3, rigid role definitions. So there's very strict adherence to roles, preventing team members from adapting and taking on new responsibilities, from supporting one another and building cross-functionality within the team. So for this crime of tyranny, how do you relate to these? What do you think? All right, so we have come to the last crime in this long list of charges against the Scum Master, and it's related to Agile principle number 12. At regular intervals, the team reflects on how to become more effective, then tunes and adjusts its behavior accordingly. And for this, the crime is kidnapping. Our evidence shows that team retrospectives have vanished. And despite a massive search, we have only had a few scattered sightings. Those sightings were dead ends. They were only superficial retrospectives that haven't resulted in any meaningful reflection or change. Systemic problems that exist across the broader organization aren't identified, so teams can't solve those problems. So for this crime of kidnapping, what do you think on a scale of 1 through 5? Now, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the prosecution rests its case, and I would like for all of you to deliberate to arrive at a guilty or not guilty verdict for each of those 12 charges. So hopefully you have written down your numbers from 1 through 12. And now on your screen, we have a Menti poll where you can log in using the QR code or the URL here, and I will copy it and put it into the chat as well. Let me get that into the chat here so it's easier for you to click. And this would be your opportunity to vote and see where we are. So I'll keep that up for a few minutes, and then I'm going to switch over to our Menti poll and just see where everybody is. And let's see which crimes are the most egregious. All right. Let me switch over for a second here. Hopefully everybody has that link up. Let me know either in the chat or you can shout out if you need me to put that back up. But let me jump over here and let's take a look at what we have so far. All right, look at this. It's moving here. Moving around a lot. Looks like people haven't voted for this one yet.
Yeah, we can only do looks like we can only do 4 at a time.
Oh, okay, so it doesn't let you do all of them? That's weird. Okay. So are you able to, that's weird. I think last time it was able to do all of them, but let's try this. So far we have 3, not as guilty for principle number 2. Seems like we're kind of in the middle on some of these here. So let's go to the next. Here we go. There's some coming in now. All right. So then on principle number 5, oh, it looks like the face-to-face conversation, that one's a little bit higher. And then we go to the last. Oh boy. Okay. Look at these. We've got principle number 9, 10, and 11 seem to be the highest here. Let's go back and just see if anything else has changed. So the good news is that
Put in
um,
5 through
oh, go
6.
ahead. Go ahead.
I had 3 seconds to put in like 5 through 8, and it flipped to the next one.
Oh, it
Now it's
did. Okay,
back to
let's
1.
go back. Let's go back then. Maybe it's only letting you put it in if I'm on the slide, perhaps.
Maybe?
I
Yeah.
think so.
Okay. Okay. Well, see that? I'm inspecting and adapting as I go. All right. Well, let's give this a few more minutes then. Seems like we're pretty good on these. They are creeping up a little bit. How about did folks have enough time to put in their votes for the first 4? I think so. I'm thinking so. So we're kind of in the middle on a lot of these, and number 2 is reasonably low. So that's good news. Just jotting a few of these down here so I can, and then I'll jump back to that 5 through 8. So anybody else that wants to vote on those, and then we'll jump to the next ones here.
So I think maybe, and I'm not sure about this, but when you switch slides, I lose my previous answers. And
Yeah, I have the same.
Oh, that's interesting.
yep, so your numbers are changing.
Oh, very interesting. Okay. All right.
So you can't go backwards. In other words,
I
yeah.
can't go backwards. Folks. Okay, that's a bummer. Um, we should decide what we want to do. What do we want to do? Do we want to start back from the beginning one more time? And then we'll just walk through?
Maybe it's remaining or keeping it if you hit submit. But if you haven't hit submit, then it's bouncing around.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. That could be. All right. Yeah, because see, these are creeping up again because they were pretty high for a while.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it doesn't really matter what order we do them in, right? So maybe start with this one and then we can.
Yeah. Interesting. And this is just to get a little bit of a gauge here. Um, so that was the last one. Now maybe if I go to the next slide, if I should be able to see the results here. Let me move out of the full screen again. And actually want to go back to the regular link. Let's see if it gives me the results. Oh, well, that didn't work so well, did it? Here we go. Let's view the results. Come on. There we go. All right. So this may or may not be fully accurate, this ever so scientific experiment that we're doing here. But the more important thing is to get you to be thinking about some of these results. So we had kind of middle of the road here for a lot of these, and on the lower side for principles two. Principle 2 is kind of the lowest there.
Can you expand it a little bit, Kim? Can you make it more full screen?
Let me try to do that. See,
And
can I?
get rid of or you can X out the,
Yeah, I didn't want to do that. I want to go back this way.
you can X out the overview on the right, maybe.
Let's try this again. Yeah,
That slide on the right, you can,
I think if I do present is
there
the
you go.
better. Yeah, there we
Yeah,
go.
great.
There we go. Okay. So you can see we're kind of in the middle there. Principle number 2, welcome changing requirements. That got the lowest guilty vote. So that's pretty interesting because probably because it could be that we welcome too many changing requirements, right? But that's hard to say. Kind of middle of the road on this one as well, with the face-to-face communication being seemingly the biggest detractor there. And then these last 4, the votes were definitely getting a little bit higher. So the technical excellence, simplicity, right? Not becoming a feature factory, not overdoing, just taking on all the work. Letting those teams self-organize instead of having 1 or 2 people on the team or even people outside the team telling the people how to do their jobs. And then that overall reflection. So this was just meant to be a little bit of a fun activity to get you to reflect on what's actually going on in your organization. But what I would really love to do with some of our time remaining here, as I'm going to close out of this one, is just understand what's actually going on within your teams or organizations. Like, what did anything resonate with you during this time? Because, again, we're going to do our verdict here really quickly. And I'm going to go ahead and say that by and large, the Scum Master is still guilty, at least on some of these counts. Some a little more than others. And what I really want you all to take away as we charge the defendant for these crimes is that we have to stop over-indexing on the frameworks. We have to stop over-indexing on the what and the how. We need to be focusing on valuable customer outcomes. And Glenn has a question. You want to chat, Glenn?
Yeah, from this, I'm gonna take it that if Agile dies, it's the Scrum Master's fault. Because I looked at a lot of these and I said, I mean, the team has that problem, but you shouldn't imprison the parents because the kid did something.
Right. Yeah, no. And again, this was just a little bit tongue in cheek, right? We have to kind of pick on someone, but you're right, Glenn. This is about the entire team. This is about everyone within the organization. Now, what I will say is that, and again, I'm a certified Scrum trainer, right? So I teach a lot of Scrum Master classes, but I will be the first to tell you, and I'll be the first to tell the students that come to my class that my expectation is that spending 2 days with me, you are going to get a very solid foundation of knowledge of Scrum, but that doesn't make you an expert. It doesn't give you the full mastery of Scrum. That takes years of experience and continued knowledge acquisition. So one of the unfortunate things that I've been seeing is that folks will take a 2 day class, they'll get a certification, and then a company hires them with certain expectations that it's just unrealistic for that individual to have. And then that individual who is pretty green, in terms of the role of the Scrum Master, or unfortunately, the organization might even treat them as, oh, you're just the meeting setter upper. You're the minute taker, right? It's like an admin role. So that might be another scenario. And then they wonder, well, why is this framework not working for us? Because we don't really have that level of expertise. We don't have those strong champions, and the role of the Scrum Master is often really misunderstood. So
Yeah.
while I will say it's not all on the Scrum Master, and I'm glad you brought that up because we're definitely not trying to make out the Scrum Masters to truly be the bad guys and gals. But there is certainly a lot of value if you do have, strong agile coaches, strong Scrum Masters to help pave the way.
There's a good point in the by Elizabeth in the chat. A lot of these issues are driven by management.
Yeah,
Mhm.
if I could, I will not name the company. You guys all have access to my LinkedIn. You can probably figure out who it was. I went into an organization attempting to do some form of scaling on Agile. The roadmap was already defined when I got there. Um, I was trying to, prioritize work delivered, and they're like, nope, 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 we've got to make sure that everybody is fully allocated. And I was like trying to explain to people, that's not a great idea because, you know, we all know things take longer, and you've got to make sure that you to successfully deliver on a sprint, you really do need that slack in your schedule. Um and I frankly got to a point where I got tired of picking buckshot out of my beehive. Sorry for the colorful metaphor, but I got shut down one too many times.
It's really frustrating, Elizabeth. I completely can relate to that. And I'm so glad to hear you say, we need to have some of that slack. That's really where all of the goodness comes into play. The analogy that I will often use is if a highway system was built to be able to
Oh,
support a
yeah,
particular number of cars. But
yep.
if you always have it maxed out, you don't go anywhere fast. You're just in a
Oh,
traffic jam.
yeah. No, one of my favorite slides was a somebody took a picture of, and I'm in the Hartford market, of the 84 going through Hartford at rush hour, and it's bumper to bumper. And
Right,
I, guys, this is 100% you know, utilization. We don't want this.
right, right. And on top of that, not only are we 100% planned out, and so that means that we're also only focusing on time or over-indexing on time
Mhm.
a lot of it, and not always thinking about the effort that's involved. But then what often happens is the work's pre-assigned, and therefore you're maxed out already. And so when somebody else on your team needs help, or somebody has a really cool idea and they kind of want to explore it, or pick somebody else's brain, what is our reaction? I don't have time for you. I
Right,
have to get my own work done, because if I stop to help you, I'm not going to get my other things done. And that's never what was intended.
Right.
right.
How can you collaborate when you're 100% allocated, right?
Exactly. Exactly. And so that that really does, tie into where a lot of the innovation and the creativity is lost. We actually, have to, we can go faster when we take on, a little less work initially, and we actually deliver more in the long run.
Yeah.
But it feels counterintuitive, but it's not.
It does, and explaining that to management, I've had situations where I've had to go to management and say, "Hey, listen, you can't be dropping work in the sprint partway through. Work with me, work with the product owner. We'll get it pulled together. We'll invite you to a backlog refinement session. We'll give you pride of place so you're in and out in 10-15 minutes." Um, and I I made the case successfully, got got this director to listen and actually follow through on what he had taken in, and it was awesome. And everybody noticed that it was helping everybody, not just my team. So you
Absolutely.
can make the case, but it's hard.
Mhm.
It is. And you need that powerful coalition, and that's again where the Scrum Master role can really play an integral part, because as one Scrum Master in the organization and you're supporting, one or maybe two teams, you can only go so far. And it really requires working collaboratively with other strong Scrum Masters and coaches to help facilitate that broader change, and working with leadership. So I can feel your pain, Elizabeth. Um, Maggie, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, it's funny because we've always had Scrum Masters as an integral role on the team, but we don't have a job called Scrum Master. We don't have a title, right, as Scrum Master. So it's always been a role. And I found that one of the best implementations was when we actually had rotating people rotate through that role of different folks on the Scrum team, so that once there was training available and whatever, but you see you had experienced folks with years of experience, and they'd be engineers, basically engineers and QA people who would take on the role for a sprint or two sprints, depending, and they would be facilitators for that sprint. They weren't actually to take any work. They were facilitators as the Scrum Master and take on the Scrum Master role. And it was really helpful as far as collaboration went, because once you're tasked with being the Scrum Master, you realize how difficult it is, like how actually difficult it is, and how important collaboration is, and following and you usually get leveled up on the principles as well. So my favorite principle, I usually play more of the product manager role, and that one with the work not done, that's my favorite one. Like maxing that out.
Agile principle number 10, simplicity,
Number
the art of
10.
maximizing the amount of work not
That's
done,
so
is
important, because
critical.
if I had a dime for every time an engineer came to me and said, like, oh, I was working on this, Maggie, and and it covered this and that, and whatever, and like, what do I, how far deep do I get into this technical debt or whatever? So like clarifying for them the work not to do, what the
Mhm.
work is. Sometimes you do have to change that work, that piece of work that they were doing, or the definition of done for that, not the definition of done, the requirements for that user story. However, or add another one, change does happen, but having that clarity of work not to do, or the more you could take off their plate, you could just see the relief. That came into up to you all stressed out, and you could just see the relief. So
Well, and that boils down to WIP limits, and also another area that's very near and dear to my heart is work decomposition. And a lot of times, if we have a big piece of work and we just take that big piece in and we don't break it down smaller, it's harder to see where the negotiability comes into play. So when you break the work down into these smaller chunks, that's when you can suddenly say, wait, do we really need that? Do we really need to do this? But do we need to do the 20 variations of this?
right,
Maybe
or
it's
do we
easy
need to
to
do
get there.
that when we do this other thing? Yeah.
Right. Yeah,
Who's the
absolutely.
next? Victor was that?
Victor and then Glenn.
Yes, I just, when I listened to Elizabeth and I heard her pain, I've been in those situations. I
Mhm.
think it's important as agile leaders, as we all are here, we need to categorize a company before we go in. What's their personality? Are they serious about a transformation?
Mhm.
Otherwise, we're wasting talent that we have. So you got to make that call, right?
Yes.
And you got to educate at the stakeholder level and maintain that communication, because it's so much. Change is hard. Change is hard. And trying to do it from the bottom up opposed to the top down makes it even harder. So keep that in mind. And, we are educate, and we need to evangelize, and we need to get others in the company to see the value of the framework, and then they become evangelizers. So it's definitely something to be aware of. I've been at many companies, one where I felt myself in the corner, just kind of babysitting teams, and I said, I gotta get out of here, because the stakeholders just wanted a check mark that said that they were agile. Where now I'm in a company now where that's not the case. The stakeholders believe in it, teams believe in it, and we're making that transformation quite well. So just
Victor,
kind
I
of
think
a
that's such an
yeah.
important point, especially in today's day and age when so many folks are in the job market looking for new opportunities. Maybe they've gotten laid off or what have you. And it's not enough to just see, oh, they're hiring for a scrum master. Let me apply for this, or a product owner or a product manager for that matter, or any role really. And equipped with a deeper understanding of, well, how would I fulfill this role? You can start to ask deeper questions to really get to the root of how does this company perceive agile ways of working? How do they perceive the Scrum framework? How do they perceive the Scrum Master role? So it becomes really important to be able to dig a little bit deeper to see through some of that. So I'm glad you brought that up, and I'm really glad that you're at a company that embraces it in a way that you would expect.
Yes, thank you.
Glenn.
I don't know if I was wondering if you ran into this, Kimberly, that if management comes and says, okay, this agile thing is not working for us, and you might turn and say, well, you have all the names in place on the teams, but you're not doing agile, so we can't say whether it would work or not. Have you run into that much?
Well, so I just want to make sure I understand your question. You're saying that how do you respond when they say agile's not working for us? Is that right?
Right.
Yeah. Well, and that's actually a nice little segue, because I'm going to flip through these next couple of slides really quickly, and hopefully that it'll somewhat answer your question. And I'd also love to hear what other folks on the call have here on the slide. I would start with when they say Agile's not working for us, or Scrum's not working for us, or what have you. Now it's time to take that step back and say, okay, why? Because to me, that is indicative of we're going through all of the motions, but we're not really understanding why we're doing those things. And we want those agile principles to guide us. And if we go back to those principles and say, okay, what's really not working here? Are we actually focused on our customers? Are we taking on too much work? Are we telling the teams what to do and just overloading them and not listening to them. Like whatever those anti-patterns are, some of those things that we kind of talked about during our trial, um, we got to go back to those root causes a little bit more and start there. And the other thing that I would recommend is with any organization that is struggling, you can't fix everything at once. You could be taking a step back, armed with all of your knowledge and experience, and you might be able to list out 20 different things that are wrong, or that could be better, or could be improved. But it doesn't necessarily mean that all of those things are going to have the greatest impact. So taking a step back and saying, all right, right now we are, and I'm just going to make this up, we are just drowning in production issues. Right? Start there. Like that would just be the one focus. How can we help to resolve these production issues, right? We have to bring the quality in earlier and dig into the root cause. Well, why is there a lack of quality? Is it because we don't have, good team collaboration? Is it because we are, hiding technical debt and shoving things under the rug to get things out the door? Is it because we're not spending enough time in backlog refinement to really understand? So continuing to peel those layers of the onion back to get to the root cause, to me, that's the better way to start to, show and demonstrate that it can work. But you have to kind of go back to the principles first and say, here's what we're not doing, and here's why it's not working. But I'd also love to hear from other folks on the call. What are all of your thoughts? Have you experienced scenarios where your leadership has said, this isn't working for us? Maggie's putting some things in the chat. Look for okay. You're repeating what I was saying. Okay. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I guess I can share a small success story. We had a team that had been following Scrum for years, not really following Scrum. We convinced them to give Kanban a try, and suddenly it clicked. It's like, oh, a PBI should be user value. Oh, it should go through the whole value stream. Oh, now I get it. And so that was a good feeling. That was in the last month, but it was 2 years trying to get them to try Kanban before they were willing to give it a shot.
Yeah, so Kanban is a great framework, and a lot of I do think that it can sometimes be misunderstood because it's actually a pretty disciplined framework, and it does involve a lot of tracking and scrutiny around your lead time and your cycle time. And the whole idea is that you want to have that really quick delivery. You want to limit that work in progress. But I do think that even if you're not leveraging Kanban fully the way the framework would prescribe, that might be a way to just kind of get people into that mode of thinking in these smaller chunks and shorter cycles of work. It could almost be like the training wheels for a team that might eventually want to leverage Scrum, but they're not quite there yet. And it sort of kind of paves the way for them. So that's a great thought.
Yeah, I've had a lot of success starting teams with Kanban and then eventually transitioning to Scrum, and then starting to bring in the XP principles.
Mm-hmm. Yep, absolutely. Absolutely.
Kim, I'm going to go ahead and end the recording for now. So folks want to speak more candidly about their organizations, that could, unless there's anything else you wanted to capture on the recording. I don't know if you had any more.
I mean, the only thing I just my cutesy little slide here of long live agility, and then I can share this with folks afterwards, but I love when folks connect with me. So please feel free to reach out if we're not already connected. I would love to hear from you and continue to stay in touch. So, but again, I can also share that offline. So I will stop sharing my deck, and that way you can stop the recording, and everybody can speak more freely.